piece of campus, but the popular topic is the backup quarterback race. How do Ryan and DeCarrion look out there?
I'm really pleased with all three of my guys, but obviously those guys are the ones sort of competing for a job. But both of them played really hard, and they're protecting the football and doing everything we ask.
Is it still a case of maybe, DeCarrion's better, maybe making plays with his feet, Ryan's better, maybe throwing the ball, or are they both pretty equal across the board?
Yeah, we look at the whole body of work, because we run our offense. Now, obviously, if one guy has a little bit better of one thing, if he were the guy, we would move to that and vice versa. But like I said, we're running our offense, and they've got to master it.
You've had a spring with Ryan. Have you seen him? How have you seen him develop?
I think he's come along great, for a guy that just stepped on campus less than a year ago, and in their battling, I'm proud of them.
What's the biggest challenge a young quarterback faces in trying to grasp this offense?
I think it's just anytime you go to college, you have to worry about, instead of probably in high school you have a couple different things to think about. In college, we're going to have protections, and all of our runs have something outside of actually just handing it off, all the different reads. So it's just a lot of different things that he's got to grasp. But they all do. I mean, they're all having to do the same thing, and a lot of the stuff that we do now are not things that they did, 2 years ago. So we're all still learning.
Going into the scrimmage, what are the kind of things you want to look for, really, from all three guys?
Number one is our whole number one point for our whole team is protect the ball. Mm-hmm. So if we protect the ball, we feel like we've got playmakers enough to score points on offense, and we're good enough on defense to win games if we protect the football.
Will mentioned that was a little bit of a problem in the early days at camp about holding on to the ball too long. Have you seen that as well?
Well, again, anytime you first get started, you're thinking about the protection, you're thinking about the routes and all that, and you get caught up. But we definitely talk to them a lot about having a clock in your head of when to get rid of the ball.
Is there any thought to trying to get DeCarrion on the field in some capacity, a special package, or maybe even a different position or something?
In my mind, he's a quarterback.
What kind of steps have you seen Jake take from the summer, honing his game, working on that stuff?
Jake is as hard a worker as I've ever been around. And, his thing is he went through, and we all did, but had a plan what he needed to work on. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's been studying film, out there on his own, working on it, and all the different things that, hopefully will get him to that next level.
Some folks commented on, I think his throwing motion looked cleaner a little bit. Have you kind of seen that? Or?
I mean, the thing to me, by the time you get to this level, you're not going to change your throwing motion. He's been throwing since he's probably 4 years old. We're not going to change much. Now, if he releases the ball a little bit higher, that's great. I'm a big component of when the ball goes where it's supposed to go, that's a good thing. If it doesn't, we got to figure something out.
Have you seen more of a sense of urgency from him, kind of knowing that maybe this is his last year of eligibility?
I don't see it that way because he's always had a sense of urgency. He's that type of guy that everything he does is going to be full speed ahead.
How will Jake's increased physical strength help him, if at all, or is that just a hold up in the
No, I think any athlete, if you're bigger, stronger, and faster, you're going to play better.
How does it translate technically to the quarterback position? Have you noticed something?
Just the fact that you get to the end of the game and you're maybe a little bit tired, that ball's still going to zip out good. Just that simple of a thing. But also obviously breaking tackles, that is going to happen in games. Hopefully it doesn't happen too often for our quarterback, but it's going to help him.
You talked about a moment ago just reads and maybe guys holding on to the ball too long. With Jake Bentley just being second year in this offense really and working with you, have you seen his confidence grown just in the command of the systems, and do you see him playing really fast for a guy who's supposed to be a senior and the leader of this team?
Yeah, he definitely knows it inside and out. And, again, he studies as hard as anybody. And, I mean, from the day I got here, he was all in and wanted to know exactly what to do. And, I mean, he's in asking me questions. I got to tell him, hey, you got to go home. You've been here enough.
Dan, from the time the quarterback, I was going to say breaks the huddle, but heck, nobody huddles anymore. The time he sort of gathers himself and looks up for a play, how many decisions does he make until the end of that play? Can you take me through the kind of what's...
Well, it obviously depends on the play, but if we have, say we have a run play called, which back in the old days, like you said, you'd break the huddle, get the snap, and hand it off to that guy. That was your job. Anybody could do that. Now it's, okay, we got to see the front to see if we need to change the run. We're going to look at the secondary because we might throw it if they got too many guys in the box over here. If they've covered over here but they're weak over here, we could throw it there. Now we decide, okay, they are covered down, so now we're going to hand it off, but we got to read the end, say. So there's, I mean, again, it depends on the play, but there's a lot of different decisions. and we have a progression. Again, back in the old days, it was a progression only for passes. You're going to read it this way. Now it's a run progression. You look at this, you look at that, you look at that, and then we hand it off.
How many of the run play? What percentage of the run plays y'all call are definitely a run? We're running this ball.
Very
no matter
few.
What?
Very few.
5%?
I don't know what the percent is, but it's not very many. It'd be close to that.
Okay.
Dan, Jake has had some struggles in the first quarters of games over his career. Has there been one thing that you guys have worked on, so that's what the problem is, and we can fix it?
No, to me, a lot of that is circumstance. We go out and execute. We're thinking one play at a time. Our goal as an offense is 1-0, not 1-0 game, 1-0 play. So let's go out and win this play. Whatever happens, let's win the next play. And that's the only way you can go into it, I think.
What's your thought on a clear number 2 going into the season? Do you have a time when you want to know who that person is, or will you carry that into the first game?
No, that's totally up to Coach Muschamp.
Is your goal offensively for the tempo to increase this year, or were you guys pretty happy with the pace?
I feel like we were close last year, but I think you can always go faster. Our big thing is if the ref is having to sprint to get set up, we're going fast enough. If we're sitting there waiting while he's got his hand on the ball, that's a good thing.
That's what you want.
That's what we
You
want.
weren't quite there last year.
We were a lot, but we have a lot of different tempos. So it's not like we're going to do that every single play.
Right.
With Ryan, what has kind of stood out with him in these early practices, and what stood out about what he's been able to do and develop since spring ended?
I think the fact that first of all he's changed his body. Coming out of high school, probably didn't lift a whole lot compared to what he's doing here, and so he's lost weight and actually gained a lot of muscle mass. So that's the first thing. Just football wise, you can just tell he's got a much better grasp. Obviously, I mean he knows it inside and out, just like the other guys do, and now it's a matter of translating. It's always for a younger guy, translate from the meeting room to the field. And I've been really pleased with how that's happened.
Well, what is he like as a meeting room guy?
I mean, just like all of them, there's like class. I'm not going to sit here and scream and yell at them like some coaches have to, I guess. But for me, you come into my meeting room, we're sitting there, and it truly is like a class. I'll draw stuff up on the board. We watch film. They're taking notes, and yes sir, no sir, and we move on to the next play.
Where have you seen the biggest progression in carry-on since the spring?
His throwing has gotten a lot better, I think. His accuracy, it's something he's worked really hard on. Again, after spring, we talked about all the different things that each guy had to do individually, and like I said, they all have done exactly what I've asked.
Is there a trait or a skill that can get him on the field in a certain circumstance this year, regardless of Jake's health or production?
Again, I don't know that. I mean, he's a quarterback in my mind, and if coach decides we've got another plan for whatever reason, whatever, I don't know. But in my mind, he's a quarterback.
Has there been any separation in the backup battle at this point?
I don't talk about depth chart. Like I said, to me, they're both playing really hard. I'm really pleased with both of them.
Dan, you say you don't want to mess too much with throwing motions. So when you say DeCarrion's throwing is improved, how do you improve throwing without changing throwing motion?
I think it was more just him really working on it a lot. We have drills that we do that just working on his accuracy. We throw into nets. When you've been out there, you see the squares, and instead of like when I was a younger coach, we would just throw it to the manager. Well, one ball would hit right here and one would hit right here. In their mind, yeah, I completed that. Well, now every single time he throws a ball, it has to hit in that square. If it misses by that much, he's concentrating on it and thinking, okay, I've got to get better.
And are you telling them, are you calling out the square as they take the snap? I assume they're throwing for a certain square, but depending on what rep you're taking.
Depending on the drill, but usually I'll tell them beforehand because of the throw. So certain throws we want to throw a little bit higher, certain throws we want to throw a little lower.
How important is it for you then, footwork for these younger quarterbacks? Because I know it's something you worked on with Jake last year, but for Helinski and Joyner, is that something you really look at and stress upon for those guys?
Footwork is everything. So I said we don't mess with our throwing motion much, but I do mess with our feet because if you're throwing off balance, it's not going to be very accurate. The other thing is with all the things we do because of the runs is we're having to ride it in and then have to make a quick throw. Well, if your feet are out of whack, you're not going to be able to make that throw.
How do you teach footwork? What are some key things that you emphasize when talking to these guys about footwork?
My main thing is we talk about perfect position. So perfect position means that you've got to be in the position that feels best for you to throw a pass. So whenever again, we've got all different runs and all different drops, but when it gets done with it and I've taken my drop or my play action, I've got to be in that position to make the throw. And it's mainly being balanced.
Does Zelensky have a little hitch in his throwing motion?
No.
Have you seen much of Jay Urich this camp, or is he really mostly focusing on wide receiver at this juncture?
He's focusing mostly on wide receiver.
You've obviously called offenses before. What can year 2 as an offensive coordinator mean for Brian, a guy that's obviously now been able to install his system and kind of knows his personnel maybe a little bit?
Well, he obviously did a great job last year, and I mean, I feel like as an offense, we're just going to keep on getting better.
What are some things that, as an offense, you needed to grow on? I know you guys obviously emphasized limiting turnovers, but what else?
Number 1 was protecting the ball. Number 2 was red zone touchdowns. I don't even look at that stat that says red zone scoring, which means you kick a bunch of field goals. I look at how many times did we score touchdowns, and we weren't close to where we want to be. So those are our 2 big things that we're working
Field
on.
goals don't count in your book.
No.
What is that number that you want to be for red zone touchdowns? 50% higher?
Well, put it this way: 70% would have led the country. So it was like 69 or .6996 or something. So we want .70.
What did Jake get out of that Manning Passing Academy?
I think that a couple things. First of all, it's all top quarterbacks down there talking football. The Manning family, who I've been lucky enough to get to know, I mean, those guys are serious about quarterbacking, obviously. So just the fact that they're down there around each other and talking football is a big thing. But the other thing is, they get to compete against each other at the end, which is fun. And Jake ended up winning it, so that's a huge deal for him. Along with the fact that he gets to coach younger kids. And it's now he's thinking, oh, now I see why Coach says this all the time, and this guy's doing the same thing. So I think that's a great situation for all those guys.
Did he get a little boost in confidence about winning that competition?
I would think so. He was proud of it, I'm sure. I would.
We often talk about footwork when it comes to passing, but I kind of wanted to ask, how much work goes into footwork in terms of run plays, in terms of what, the quarterback getting in position, that kind of stuff, and how important is that? And I guess, does it say something about a quarterback if they're as focused on that as they are in the throwing footwork as well?
Because of what we do, it's just as important because we will throw the ball off of the run game. 50, how many times they load the box, we're going to throw it. So it's just as important as the pass game.
You talked about being better in the red zone. What does it take to be a good red zone team? Obviously, putting the ball in the end zone is goal number 1. But I mean, is there a trait of successful teams that know how to execute?
I think for us, if you look at all the stats, a lot of the teams that are really running teams obviously are better at it. So for us, we've got to get better at running the football down there. But we are the type of team that if you load the box, we've got to be able to pull it and throw it. So if that's the case, we've got to make plays.